Great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the session on food safety, where you should start your inspection and when. This session will be delivered by Dominique Sauvage. He is of Rentokil Terminex. He's the Senior Director of Quality and Technical Services. He has 38 years of experience in pest control and food safety throughout the food and pharmaceutical industry in 17 countries. And he has gained knowledge in the following fields: Food Defense Coordinator Level 2, PCQI, that is Preventive Controls Qualified Individual, HACCP Trainer, Lead HACCP Auditor, and Preventative Controls Qualified Individual. Food safety audit standards and requirements, written and presented 12 papers in international congresses about pest control and food safety. He's also written 8 articles for 4 different national magazines on pest control, HACCP, and food defense. He's the owner of a pest control and food safety training and audit company in Southern Africa, and he's carried out over 3,200 pest control and food safety audits in all food and pharmaceutical industries fields. He's trained over 7,000 people from various types of food manufacturing industries, and my current position, or his current position, allows him to influence over 7,500 people and ensure that they are successful in their careers. So let's give Dominique a hand, and over to you, Dominique.
Thank you very much. All right, morning. Good, you can hear me. How's everybody doing? All right, who's had too much coffee? Whoa, all right. You need to cut back on it, Pete. It's not good for you. All right, so just a quick show of hands. Who was in my last presentation? Actually, who wasn't in my last presentation? Okay, all right. So in my last presentation, I spoke about food defense, food security, understanding how to assess a food facility. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of that similar stuff, but from a pest control perspective. And we're going to talk a little bit about what do you need to see, what do you need to look for, what are the tools in the toolbox for your inspection, all right? Because if you were here for Keith's talk and Bobby, everybody talks about inspection, 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 inspection. And that is vital, because when we think about the pests that we're dealing with, they are shy. They're not going to be visible at all points. They normally will only get visible if something is irritating them, making them sick, or someone is messing around with their habitat. So they are going to be cryptic. They're going to be hidden away. So we need to look for them. We will see signs that will tell us certain things, and we need to be able to read those signs. And we need to be able to tell a story. Okay? So that's what we're going to look at for the next 45 minutes. Right, so now we need to really think big. Okay? I'm heading off now to this account to service the account. I may have been there 100 times. I may have never have been there. The first part is we need to make sure we go to the right street address. Okay? All right? Yeah, you guys chuckle. All right? You laugh. Let me tell you a little secret. How many times have we had people service the wrong house or the wrong facility? It happens, okay? It happens. So, need to make sure we know where we're going. Then, nowadays, we have that cool tool, which I don't have in my pocket. I've left it over there, because otherwise it distracts, is a cell phone. On that cell phone is a mapping tool. So, you're able to take the street address, look at where you're going to go, and look at what is around that place you're going to. Because that environment around that building will and can influence that place that you're going to. So we need to start our inspection way before we arrive. Okay? Now, if it's an account I've been to, then I should start my inspection on what is the history of the account. Okay? Now, some of us have got fantastic memories. Okay? We know that Bait Station 12 has had activity the last 3 services. We know that That spot in that corner has got this condition. Some of us don't have that ability. So we need to refresh our memory, make sure we know what we're going to be looking for, because we're looking for patterns. We're looking for things that are going to create something that we can follow. All right? So now what we do is we're going to take our cell phone and we're going to look at that facility. Okay, so here is a Best Buy in San Francisco. There's Highway 101. Okay, pretty simple account, right? Not much food except for at the cash out, where they do that forced feeding buying concept by you need a chocolate and you need water and you need all this other cool stuff. So most chances are this does not have a major issue. But when we look at where this is positioned, okay, it has the freeway on the top, okay? Now, those of you who have been out in San Francisco will know that the weather is not particularly the best in the country, okay? Can be very cold, even in summer. So the chances are that you have something or some people congregating under this bridge to get out of the weather, okay? So that brings all sorts of information, right? You have a building here that is abandoned. You have this garden area, and then back here you have a recycling facility and a few other things. But I can see that there's stuff going on here. What you can't see in this picture is just back here, they have a food truck area where all these food trucks pull in. Okay, and I will tell you there's some really cool food there, just as a side note. All right, but that's what I see when I look at this facility. Not much going on when you really take it from that angle. But when you look at this building is vacant, you have this flower bed area. What rats would we find in San Francisco? Okay, both, yeah. One's quite common, Norway rat, specifically because you're on the water, okay? So when I look at this and say, okay, roof rats, possibly because of this building. This I look at and say, okay, possibly Norway rats. Now, as I said to you earlier, this is the bridge, and back here is the food truck situation, right? So now, when we start to think about this, we want to start to really look at what's going on. And straight away on this, by just looking at the Google, I can see pathways, right? Now, what's interesting is, those are not human pathways. Those are rat pathways that I can see from a satellite image. Okay? So I'm just telling you, we're up shit creek. Right out the gate. Okay? Now, when you get and have a look here, these Norway rats are running these paths all the way along. Look, what's there? Homeless. Okay? Back here, and you can't, I'm not able to show the photograph of this, but back here is a fence between the building and the parking lot. All the trash that blows around here is all pinned up in this area, okay? And I have seen a lot of Norway rat problems. This one was one that blew my mind, right? The paths were wide. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I would not, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, people are walking here. And when I sat and watched it, it was like, that's not people. That's an absolute huge family of rodents moving back and forth, right? Now, when we send our technicians out to these facilities, we generally don't want them to park right in front of the building, all right, to take customer parkings and that kind of thing. You want them to park out the way. So I would always say, park back against something that is giving you a bit of a view, right? So for me, I would like the technician to park on this line or the one that runs this way against the fence, because while he's sitting in there looking at the service tickets and getting himself ready or herself ready, she might be able to see something interesting that she needs to know or he needs to know about what's going on at that facility. So I naturally chose to park there because that's what I would expect. and that's when I watch the rats running. Okay? But when you think about this, you think, okay, well, why are they there? So when you think about San Francisco, it doesn't have a lot of rain, but it has a lot of fog and mist, but they've got sprinklers, irrigations. And then when you watch, when the irrigations turn on, it looks like the Bellagio water show, right? Because there's just water pouring out from every angle because they've chewed all the water pipes or the irrigation pipes, and that's their water source. Then when you start to look at where did the food come from, then you start to see packets of covers from sandwiches and that kind of thing that came from the food trucks. That's the food source. Pretty simple situation, all right? Then, when we start to go, all right, so what's around the back of the building, right? So we take a walk around the back of the building. Doesn't look too bad in this photograph. The day I was there, you could not walk on that sidewalk for homeless. It was completely, I had to walk in the street to go around. Now, we don't have any devices on the back of this building. Nobody has any devices in the back because it's public areas, you don't place them there. So guess what? No one ever goes back there to have a look from a technician perspective. That door goes into the storeroom. All right? That door has a rubber seal that was chewed by the rats. But because we never walked around the back and didn't realize what was going on at the back, that's a problem. Now, how do you handle baiting this street with all the homeless? Anybody give me some ideas? Steel lock boxes, okay. Sure, what else? Anybody else got any ideas? You really can't. There's CO2, Pat's saying, sure, but that is just concrete slab though, so there's no burrows or anything to that effect. But you really can't do much because you have to understand what the city ordinance is. And you've got to understand what you are allowed and not allowed to do in what's deemed as public areas. That's a public area. But what was going on there was contributing to the problem at that facility. All right, so now that you have to work out a plan, and they eventually got rid of the homeless and they moved them to another area, but you've got to take those things into consideration. And when you service an account like this, not just this one, but anyone, you need to make sure that even if you don't have devices in that area, you should get to wander around and have a look. Now, whether it's by a drive-by, or you take a drive around the back and stop and have a look, if you can park and have a look. In San Francisco, parking sucks, so you will not be doing that one. You'll be walking, or you'll be double parking, but you need to make sure that you have a good plan and a good set of expectations for your technicians to walk the back of these areas where we don't have devices, because there is a story, okay? Now, in my previous talk, I spoke about timing, okay? So yeah, great, we go there at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing going on. Go back there at 11 o'clock at night, what does it look like? How does that impact you? What is really going on that you don't understand, that you didn't see when you were there earlier, okay? So make sure you're thinking about that. Right, now, understanding the building. When you think about doing pest control, there's a number of factors. So we've said we've looked at what is around the building. Now we've got to the building. We need to understand, what is this? It has a roof, okay? Some of them have basements. Some of them will have attic spaces instead of in a mezzanine section. But then you've got the walls, the foundation, the floors. What are those items? So when you look at the roof, when you start to ask questions, you need to understand, how old is that roof? When last was the roof replaced? Now, when I say replaced, what does that mean? When last was the roof replaced? What am I actually wanting to know?
I would want to know when the membrane was lifted.
Okay, all right, the membrane.
For standing water,
Sure.
blue, and then when was the membrane maintained to look for
Okay,
that kind of thing on a roof membrane?
sure.
Stuff would get in and down
All right.
into that fabric that's underneath, and then you have a problem.
Okay, so when was the roof for the membrane replaced or removed or lifted? What else? Hey, don't be shy. Come on. Right, what part of the roof was replaced? Okay, what else?
How many roofs are actually up there?
I see you've met that guy somewhere in the dark, hey? Right. So, we replaced the roof. Do you really think they took the roof off? No. They just put the frickin' new roof on top. And then what do? They stick the styrofoam between, and you know what that creates, hey? An absolutely gorgeous tunneling system for the rodents. So, when you need to ask questions, you have to be very careful about how you ask the question. When last was the roof replaced? Oh, we replaced the roof 2 years ago. No, you didn't. You put something on top. When last was that roof actually completely reconstructed? Right? Because I'll tell you what, you will be amazed at how many of these buildings, right, are 6 to 12 inches or even more taller than they were a few years ago because they just added another roof on. And it's just not understanding that situation and how that can impact you. Because at the end of the day, all they're going to do is they're going to lift that air conditioning unit up to fit into the new roof, and all that styrofoam that's available, the rats are able to penetrate that and get into the air conditioning units, and those give them access to go anywhere in the facility. So understanding the roof, understanding how the roof is constructed, understanding how that construction will impact you. Does it have a parapet wall that the roof is sealed in so the rats can't get in from the outside if they use the tree or a telephone line or something to that effect? Then we look at the basement, all right? Most basements are a storage dumping ground, right? Everything you don't want to use gets stuffed under there. Nobody really wants to go in the basement because it's dirty, it's cold, it's damp. It's got no value for people to go into. So basements are huge. Understanding what is a basement used for, how many times people go in there, what is the ventilation like, what is the moisture like, what are the contributing factors to the pest problems. Is there heating? If there's a furnace down there, how does that furnace contribute to the pest issues, right? Understanding the basement, understanding if it's sealed. I owned a house in Wisconsin that was built in 1839, right? That basement was built with massive rocks. Now, when you talk about building with Tetris, to build a basement with those massive rocks means there's a lot of concrete and stuff stuffed in between those rocks because they were never ever designed to build a decent wall. That basement was like Swiss cheese for mice because they found where the concrete was soft and they were in the basement. So understanding that piece of it. Then we look at the walls, okay? What type of walls do you have? And we'll talk a little bit about the walls, but tilt up versus a cinder block construction, okay? How does that impact you? Then we talk about foundations. Here's a photograph. I think Keith earlier said, do not assume that the way it was last month is the way it is this month, okay? They recorked the expansion joint. Preparation is the foundation to whether your exclusion will work. Caulking, same thing. Don't prepare the floor right, caulking will just lift. It's exactly what happened there. They didn't do a good job in preparing it. The mice were in the sub-slab, found their way out. All right? Very small hole. I mean, you can see how small the hole is. In a massive warehouse, very easy to miss that. So it's about the attention to detail. Where could there be? Understanding how the floor is constructed. Is the expansion joint just a cut in the concrete, an inch deep, or is it actually truly an expansion joint that goes through the slab? Understanding that piece of it. All right? Understanding if it's a floating slab. Okay? Understand how that is built, because that all gives you information. Then attic spaces, another one of those places where people don't want to go. All right, and I'm one of those people because spiders live in attics and I don't like spiders. Okay, so people don't want to go in attics, I don't want to go in attics. But that understanding what's up there, how does that affect the building? How does the roof and the attic space link? How easy is it to get from outside through this roof maze into the attic? And once in the attic, how do I move from there into the walls, into the electrical system, whatever it might be, the piping system, and can get all the way through the building? This is a maze, and you can find so much information by understanding that. Okay, so understanding construction. Tilt up. There's an example of a tilt up. Massive concrete slab. Those get transported. They weigh so much. So what do? They core them out. And they put styrofoam as cores. Right? As we said earlier, styrofoams create a cool pathway for these rodents. And if we don't understand how these things are connected and understand how that joint is sealed and understand that they can actually get in behind that insulation and travel all the way up, get into the roof, and a roof rat in a building that has a tilt up that does not have ceilings can be an absolute blast to solve. Right? So understanding that construction, understanding cinder block. Right? A punctured hole in a cinder block allows access all the way through this cinder block maze. Okay? Understanding how to seal that. Working out what am I looking for when I look at these holes. So one of the photographs in Kevin's presentation was a hole through the wall. Right? The pipe's this big and the hole's this big. Okay? Those are the kind of things we've got to understand what's going on back there. Aluminum or aluminum studs, wooden studs, understanding what the difference is, understanding that the aluminum studs actually already have pre-cut holes. Therefore, there isn't a travel path. Those wires in that wall is a travel path, understanding that. Understanding stucco when it gets down to the ground level and they didn't clear back and really put it all the way down to the end of the foundation. How does that impact you? Concrete, pitched versus flat roof, right? We spoke about the membrane on a flat roof, right? Pitched roofs create a massive problem too, because there is major opportunity, especially in the valleys and pitches of these things where you can actually get access. So people understanding construction, and everybody says to me, yeah, but why so much detail? Why must my technician know this? They're just going to go check the bait stations. No. Because if you think about what's going on at a food facility, that food plant or your customer, whether it's a food plant or not, but I'll use the food plant example, is that food plant has all these programs in place. Cleaning, maintenance, foreign objects, geez, my brain just turned off. Pat, help me. GMP programs, they've got all these programs that they use to put in place to manage their facility. So what we do is we come along and we put these bait stations and these traps and things around, monitoring devices, to see how well they do these programs. Because if they have a pest problem, the chances are it's because one of those programs failed. Okay? Yes, sir.
Something too that I usually look at when I'm doing inspection is the age of the plant.
Yes.
Because you have a
Yep.
new part, then the older part, then the older part, and every time they add on, the construction techniques are different. There might be a time you would cut off in a wall.
Yep.
It's not gap, and where the roofs
Don't line up. Yep.
terrible.
Then the next slide, we talk about the age and the history of what it was previously. So, but the thing here is that they need to understand these things because they need to take the information that these traps or these droppings or the sebum is showing them and then understand and process that into where is it going, where is it coming from, why is it here? And then from that, build a plan to be able to solve the problem. But I can't build a plan to solve the problem if I haven't inspected and found the evidence that needs to drive me in a direction. And when you've got a mouse in a trap that's on a long concrete wall and there is nothing anywhere near it, it's going to be most likely tied to how did it get into the building? How did the construction or how did the facility do something different that allowed it in? And understanding these things helps drive where to go. Because otherwise it's as frustrating as thing and nobody will do it. They just give it up. Oh, I got a trap, nothing on the wall, I don't have no idea. See you next month, find out what the problem is. Okay? So very important to understand that. Then the other things to consider. Age, okay? Very important. But also, what was it? So, when you think about an industry or a business that has tons of piping, steam, electricity, wastewater, dry cleaner. A dry cleaner has so much underground piping and that kind of thing. So if you're going to be working in a restaurant that was a dry cleaner, you better look for those pipes, those cut-off pipes, because I'll tell you what, those are coming in from somewhere that will bring some really good information in for you for how they're getting into the building. Age also talks about different construction techniques, also talks about maintenance, right? You can have a building that is 150 years, 200 years old that looks absolutely pristine, well managed, well kept, no issues. And I've seen facilities that are 5 years old that are just run down, right? So age is important, but understanding how long it's been there, what is it being used for. And then additions, okay? Winchester House of Mysteries, all right? Perfect example. There was a facility I worked with, another company in California, that they added on so many times that you would open a door and there would be a wall. Or you would see this panel that looked like it was loosely fitting, and you'd shift it, and then you'd go into this vast cavern that was just between two buildings. It wasn't big enough to use, so they just kind of like sealed it up, and there was some cool, interesting stuff in there that is important to understand. So make sure that you go and look and find out what's going on. And nowhere is out of bounds, right? Go and find things, go look for things, make sure you are asking the questions you need to ask to get some of the answers. Look at outside influences, right? Next door, recycling facility or a transfer facility or another food plant or a waste facility or something to that effect. Make sure you understand those outside influences, not just from using the Google tools and driving around the facility, but also making sure you understand how, if they run different shifts, if the wind blows, does that smell bring the pest to you, those kind of things, understanding what's out there. And then the other one, of course, is Trojan horse. Okay? Every single person that comes into that facility is a Trojan horse. They can and will bring in things from outside. And that includes raw materials, employees, all right? Trojan horses are huge. We forget about them. We do not always understand how big an impact a Trojan horse is to a facility. And we've seen on many, many occasions that it's quite clear that that is the Trojan horse, but we don't take the time to understand it. It's extremely important. And then also the process flow, understanding how the facility flows from raw materials through to finished. And understanding that when you move from raw materials to finished, if you have a kink in the line or a double back, there are cases where things can go wrong. And understanding how that process works and understanding how the ingredients flow and how the process works for the client will help you understand how and where to inspect. Now, there's one thing that's not on here, and that is interviewing the client, okay, and asking the client, what gives you heartburn? What keeps you up at night? And making sure that you're covering those bases because you hold value to the client then. And that's an important part of your inspection because then you're going to inspect what keeps them awake at night. Right, warehousing practices, first in, first out, okay? Is that being followed? Request them to give you a list when you come in of all the oldest product. How long has it been standing there? Has it moved from one rack to another, or has it always been way on the top, near the roof where it gets nice and warm and the store product insects are breeding? Okay, understand those practices. Right, so this here is a perfect example of understanding what the building was before. Okay? Grocery store. They moved freezers and fridges and displays and everything around the building and just cut off the pipes and then decided that they were going to use these pipes to run certain cables. But what's crazy is that we didn't realize they did that. And when we started to ask some questions, we realized that, hang on a second, this was where the old fridges were. That means that there must be some underground piping. So when we started to investigate, we found the piping. And that piping was linking to the warehouse, and the mice were using it to travel. But because we didn't ask the question in the beginning, what did this store look like 2 years ago, 5 years ago? Have the fridges always been here? Has the whatever's been here? We missed that, and it took us a while to find it. So understanding what the history was. All right. Okay, now, I got through that pretty quick. Right, in summary, and we'll go a little details. Knowing your surroundings. Absolutely vital to understand what is around you, and I've spoken a little bit about it, but we are Sherlock Holmes, okay? That's what our job is. Our job as pest professionals is Sherlock Holmes. Go look, investigate, take the clues we see what's going on. Then create a plan, document that plan that somebody can actually read and understand it and follow it. So we actually have to be writers. Okay? Shakespeare. Now, I hate Shakespeare, but we need to write a story. Okay? We have to write a story. And it's easy for me to stand up here. I don't like writing. So if you're going to get a report from me, it's not going to be a thesis. It's going to be a set of bullet points. And they're going to be pretty simple. You need to clean A, B, and C. I'm not going to explain to you that you need to clean it by lifting it, doing this, this, and this. I'm telling you, you need to clean. Right? People want to write theses, be my guest. But tell a story that somebody can read, understand, and action. Right? That's absolutely vital. And that's part of knowing your surroundings, understanding how they change. Right? So when you go into a food plant today at 10 o'clock, is that food plant the same food plant you're going to see this afternoon at 3 o'clock or tonight at 12 o'clock? Probably not. Something is going to be different. Something is going to affect the environment, doors left open, people not following the rules. Maybe they get their deliveries at 12 o'clock at night, and you've got tons of trucks, people aren't inspecting properly. Understanding that will help you understand how that facility can create a problem which you own and you have to manage, right? Ask questions, always ask questions. I cannot stress it. That's one of the things I did as a young technician. I would go in and I would ask somebody on the line, what do you do? And that dude was as proud as anything. He'd tell you all about it. And then you'd learn what that machine was called. You'd learn that that's production line 1, right? Or it's an enrober, or it's a homogenizer, or whatever it might be. So now when you go back and you talk to your client, you're not talking about, yeah, there's a problem over there with that thingy that makes a funny noise and whirls, and he's like, yeah, dude, you have no clue what the hell I do here. Right? But when you talk to him about, this is what that machine is, and I understand how it works, and I understand that this is how it impacts me, it changes the ball game, right? Ask the questions. And also, in Kevin's talk, and I'm sure Bobby covered it as well, is they know where things are. They know where the problems are. Don't be shy to ask the questions. I enjoy now and again, I like to go to some of these food plants and go and sit down with the engineering or maintenance team, and you bring a pizza. And you say, hey, we're going to sit down and chat about pest control. Oh man, they'll tell you where all the skeletons are hidden. They'll tell you anything you want to know. Right? And it's a simple thing. It doesn't cost much. Get a decent-sized pizza, sit and chat to them. They'll tell you what you want to know. Then you take that opportunity to teach them what you want them to know. Right? And you've got a really good relationship. And it's all about its inspection using the tools that are available to you. There are hundreds and hundreds of different tools. We just have to choose the right ones. Okay? And then also, make sure you look around your building. I've seen it time and time again, where because we don't have devices or we have no reason to go back there, we just don't go. And it's about time, I get it, but we should be looking, because there will always be something cool back there that we're going to be like, damn, I should have known about that. All right. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Read about restricted areas where you can't, you said knock down every door, get into everywhere. There are some areas in some facilities you can't get into because they are permit only or confined, restricted areas.
So most cases, unless it's a safety issue where you can't go in, you should be able to get in there. And you should be able to, it may be not every visit, but you should at least be able to know what's going on back there and be able to have some kind of line of sight. And I've yet to find somewhere where I have not been allowed in. And the only place that I've not been allowed in is from a securities perspective, and it's from arcing from high voltage. That is most time when they won't let me in. If you're talking about behind robotic arms and that kind of thing that are restricted, then you have to change your time to make sure you're there when that robotic arm is not running.
A brewery type position where there's a CO2 capture.
Sure, but that is a safety issue though. Yeah, that absolutely, that I understand. But then what I would do is I would ask them to give me some photographs from that area. You want visibility. Because at the end of the day, that one spot, because remember this, you own the pest problem. Okay? Let me reiterate that. You own the pest problem. So if it's somewhere where you don't have access and you haven't tried to get access, you own it even more. But if you've tried to get access and you've had a conversation about, hey, I need visibility back there because of this, and they don't give it to you, you have a leg to stand on. But if you haven't asked that question, you own it. You absolutely own it. Right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You talked about pipes being hidden underneath the floor at that location.
Yes.
How did you find them, and what did you do to seal them after you did find them?
So what we did was we got a blueprint. We requested a blueprint, and then we could track the pipes that way. Or you find out somebody's worked in that facility, maybe somebody worked there before, and they'll tell you the fridge used to stand here, and then you start to open up cabinets. The other way is also to smoke it. A plumber, you can get a plumber in, and they'll actually smoke pipes and drains, and where the smoke comes out, you'll be able to find where the cavity is. But one of the things you've got to be careful of doing that is if you're doing that in a strip mall, and the wall used to be here, and now it's here, and that pipe is in the next doors and the smoke comes out, the fire department and all sorts of crap will come and you'll own that one. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I've been down that road. So yeah, just understand that there are things that you're not going to see and not be able to know, so just be thoughtful on how it could impact it. Yes.
On that note,
Yes, sir.
I have found these kind of pipes before simply by looking at the tile on
Yes.
the door. The old tile is going to have that old mark of being kind of wavy a lot of times because of the refrigerator. It'll be kind of like an outline that they just can't scrub off.
That's correct.
That's what you're getting.
So this gentleman was saying, look at the floor. You can see sometimes the tiles may have a bit of a wave in it, or something that tells you that there used to be something under those, there's something under those tiles. It's another way of looking at it. It's all about looking for the signs. So sometimes when they have the drains or drains in the floor or pipes in the floor, they'll have the caps, the brass caps in the tiles. It's about, it goes down to being curious. Okay, that's all it is. It's being curious about what's going on. I cannot see anybody who works in this business that isn't curious. Because nothing is going to be that blatant. Yes, a hole in the wall or whatever it is. Those are the simple ones. The difficult ones, you have to be curious. You have to get on your hands and knees. You have to crawl around. So, and I'll give you an example of this. I came to Purdue first time 24 years ago, and there was a lecture upstairs in the next building, and there was a gentleman by the name of Jeff McGovern. Okay, so some of you know Jeff. Great man. He's a nutcase, but he's a great man. All right. We're sitting in this lecture room. It's a late night thing at about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, and there's a ladder in the room. Okay, and Jeff comes in, introduces himself, And he climbs and sits on top of the ladder. And he's talking to us all about pest control. Gets off the ladder, sits on the floor underneath the ladder. Now, we're all sitting like this on chairs. So everybody's getting up and trying to check what Jeff is doing. Jeff is just sitting on the floor and he's talking and he's going through his slides. And he gets up and he moves all the way to the one side of the room and then all the way to the other side of the room. And then he's like, okay, so what did you guys learn? And we are spouting out all this pest control BS. And he's like, you guys didn't learn a damn thing. And we're confused. And we're like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And he said, I showed you. Your head goes up, down, left, right. Use it. And it was like, holy smoke. Okay? That's all it is. It is use your senses, think about what you're doing, and you can find the problem. Right? Major problem with food plant, rodents. I'll go sit on the floor. Go at night. Sit on the floor and just watch. Or find somewhere where I can get up and just watch. Just listen. See what's going on. Something will tell you something. But you have to be curious and you have to want to know. And then also you have to have a bit of a personality, whereas I am going to get you and you're not going to beat me. Okay? That has to be part of the personality. Right. Anybody, any other questions? No? Yes, sir. Sorry.
So how do you collect the structural information? Do you do that before you inspect the site? Do you send them a form, or do you have a checklist that you go through with them? How do you get that information?
Sometimes what will happen is you will get a request to go and submit a quote for a building. Then what you can do is you can ask for some information about how was it constructed, what is the square footage. Or for me, the best is to actually go onto Google and use the Google tools to just get a rough idea of what it is. And then you can ask those questions when you get there. Or if you wanted to see the blueprints, I would ask for the blueprints before you arrive, because most of the time you say, hey, can I have a look at a blueprint? And they all look at you and say, he's not here today. So yes, it depends how you want to do it. But at the end of the day, you've got to gather that information to make sure that you can plan on how you're going to solve the problem.
So I'm thinking if there's recent occupants of a building, they're not going to know the history of the building, right? So
sometimes they do, but also then you may need to ask people next door. What was it previously? That information, and sometimes the city can give you that information, but sometimes they don't want to give it to you because it may not be public information. And sometimes you won't get that information, so then you have to make a plan. It's not always available. Okay. Anybody got any questions? Anybody submit any questions from the app? Yes, Jeremy.
So with the increased number of reporting systems that include pictures now,
Yes.
I mean, we use it pretty regularly for adding pictures to it, but have you seen like a dramatic increase of the attention coming across from the client side, having pictures to go along with what's going on, that the actual responses are getting more quick?
So absolutely. So Jeremy's question is, use of pictures, does it show a value, and have we seen an increase in the customer's willingness to get things solved with pictures? Absolutely. Because a picture says 1,000 words. If I tell you that you need to clean that corner, all right? If I said to 3 of you, you need to clean that corner, you're going to get 3 different ways of doing it. Or your desk is dirty, or your desk is a shambles. It means different things to people. But when I give you a picture of a good desk and a bad desk, or a dirty or a clean, black and white, dude, there is no freaking misinterpretation. That's how it's got to look. So pictures are vital. But, and I have to stress the but, you have to take the picture in such a way that you can see the context. Okay? So everybody got their this one, got the scan, right? So this picture, in context, it's about that big, that hole, right? Now, it's a massive facility. So if I give this picture to the client and say, you've got to seal the hole. Where? Right, okay? It's like I had a facility one year, get a phone call from the client, put some walking shoes on and come and join me. It's never a cool conversation. So I'm like, okay, get in my car, go there, He says, we're going to go for a walk. I'm like, but you got a golf cart. Why are we walking? He says, no, we're going to go look for something. So I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, they have 197 doors, pedestrian doors in this building. And your technician said, door needs to be sealed. You're going to go with me and you're going to find it. And I'm like, why don't you call the tech? He says, because you're going to be pissed off and you're going to deal with it. So guess what? I walked the facility. So make sure that you absolutely put it into context, okay? Take a photograph from here, giving context. Take a photograph closer so that I can understand that it is this big and it's this high off the floor, or whatever the detail is. Not just this close-up or this massive picture and say, clean, help me out. Context, okay? Now also understand, pictures should not have any kind of identifying detail for your customer, and they should not have pictures of employees in it, where possible, okay? Keep that in mind at all times, all right? Like you will see, you can't tell where these photographs are from. Make sure that that is a key thing you remember. Okay, anything else? Man, all right. Well, I thank you very much for your time. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day.